must have hit that K dot and was like, they not like us.
Is to see Bud fight Fundora because I'm really intrigued by that matchup.
I mean, he's a champion. He's got to be ready. Even if we think he is or not, he's got to be ready.
They're just guys that Tiffany knows. Once you're in this boxing game, you're going to keep bumping into these same guys that are in this business.
But I think that he learned something about himself that night, which I think will carry forward in the future.
Yo, what's up, everybody? It is episode 112 of the Standing 8 podcast. I'm Aaron Sorial, your host from Los Angeles. With me are my usual suspect of the original crew, Courtney, the Burt Brown Sugar Tanner, with us from abroad. And also, as always a pleasure to have him on these collaborations. Gary Kittleson of 3D Boxing. Follow his work on 3dboxingblog.com. Great stuff, and also his YouTube where he breaks down probable bets, who he thinks you should place your money on. So I enjoy watching those videos as well. So big shout out to you, Gary. So with no further ado, we're gonna react to the stunning upset win of Daniel Dubois. Over Anthony Joshua to retain his IBF heavyweight title. The Riyadh season boxing event took place at Wembley Stadium in London, where Dubois racked up 4 knockdowns against Joshua that all culminated to the spectacular fifth round TKO victory. Dubois retained his IBF heavyweight title. He won against Philip Govic as the vacant interim title in June back then of this year, June of 2024. That fight, Dubois he won that on 8th round TKO. But going back to this present fight, Anthony Joshua, he had very high hopes coming into this fight, riding a 4-win streak following his tough loss to Alexander Usyk in the rematch back in August of 2022. But for this particular fight in round 1, Daniel would be the one to set the tone for the rest of the fight when he landed that flush, clean right power shot upstairs against Joshua. Joshua was visibly hurt, disoriented from that particular shot, and it only got worse for the 2-time former unified heavyweight champion in the following rounds, leading up to the finality in round 5, where Dubois countered a desperate Anthony Joshua with a pair of right hooks to send Joshua to the canvas for the TKO victory. It was a sold out crowd with 96,000 fans. All action. Let's get everyone's thoughts. So let's go to you, Gary Kittleson. Give us your overall assessment, thoughts of that fight.
I was shocked, and not that I wasn't. If you went back to 2019, Daniel Dubois was my prospect of the year. He had beaten Nathan Gorman, and looked spectacular when Gorman was supposed to be a touted heavyweight prospect too. And I was really excited for him. I said that guy's the future of the heavyweight division. But then, he was 22 at the time. He never really fixed anything. He just became the same version of that fighter on a higher level. And, I thought he quit in the Joyce fight. And I was disappointed with him, right? But I knew the talent was there. And he just never realized it. Well, he finally realized it, right? I thought he had some moments with Usyk. I thought he did some good things, but he was clearly outmatched, right? So I didn't think he was ready for Joshua. I didn't think, he had looked good with Ergovich, and he looked good with Terrell Miller, but that's still another level from Joshua. That's a level below. I really didn't think that he was going to have this type of performance. It was dominant. And look, AJ was in the fight, kind of, right? He was landing shots. He had moments, but he kept getting knocked down. If you keep getting knocked down, you're not really in the fight. And he got knocked down, pretty much every round. So I was surprised with what Dubois was able to do and how he was able to basically steamroll Joshua. But you shouldn't be, because the talent's always been there. And for a 22-year-old heavyweight to draw that kind of attention, which he did back in 2019, that's really, really young for a heavyweight. To garner that kind of attention and love at that young of an age means that you're a special fighter. So I say all that to say that I'm surprised, but I shouldn't be. It was a dominant performance from a heavyweight who has all-world ability.
Great stuff, Gary. Courtney, any response to that, and also your assessment as well? Go ahead, Courtney.
I'm gonna start off with a question to Gary, man. Do you really believe that shot that Dubois landed on Usyk was low? Because I don't. Here's what I've watched that countless times. That shit was right on the belt, bro. And if Usyk is left to his own devices, he doesn't get up in 10 from that, man.
I agree.
I think that's very telling, bro.
Let me say this: like, if it's a football game, whatever you rule on the field stands, right? Like, if you want to rule,
boxing is rife with revisionism.
Clean. Like,
boxing is rife with revisionism. I usually shake my head and turn my nose up at that, but I mean, to me, that's telling. So with that, coupled with that, I agree with you though. I think Dubois did quit against Joyce. I think Joyce caught him when Joyce was at the type of level where there was a few guys who were going in there with Joyce and quitting, or getting ended. So I think as much as he can be faulted or flawed for that, I think it's limited. But once again, boxing is very revisionist. But I'll say this regarding what's in front of us and what's on the plate. I think Dubois. It didn't surprise me. It didn't surprise me at all. And it's not so much of what Dubois was able to do to Anthony Joshua. It's how we've seen Anthony Joshua respond from getting rocked early in the past, particularly against Andy Ruiz. And I think Dubois watched a lot of VHS of that fight between AJ and Andy Ruiz, and I think it paid dividends for him. I think it's also a case where AJ goes to a fight mentally thinking that he's won because of who he was in against. I think against Andy Ruiz, he went in and he took that lightly because the guy in front of him wasn't, supposed to be as dangerous as who he'd already been in against or who he's supposed to be in against. I think him going up against Dubois for a title, the opportunity fell in his lap, and seeing that he's already been in the ring with the undisputed champ or formerly undisputed champ twice, and had moments against that guy. He thought Dubois was going to be a piece of cake. I think he came in from his actions and his words in the lead up and the pre-fight. He thought it was basically in the bag. This was going to be a Charles Martin. He was going to show up and get crowned. And then that when he met adversity early on and very directly, the same thing that happened against Andy Ruiz. He folded, and he got folded eventually. So in terms of being surprised, it's a movie we've seen before. It was just basically a reboot. So,
to add to your point, Courtney, I agree. I did feel like Anthony Joshua did take Dubois for granted, and that kind of led to him forgetting those fundamentals, especially on the defensive side. We saw throughout the fight. I don't know, even those critical moments where he got hit, his guard was not up. So
exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what's been all over social media from the boxing pundits like myself who've never been in the ring to breaking it down from video experts and and former world champions, is that it's unanimously out on AJ. He for him to be at that level, he doesn't put his hands up. That so that's a critical flaw of his that's easy to exploit by lesser talents. And I don't necessarily think Dubois is a lesser talent. I think Dubois is a guy who is extremely heavy-handed and and has deceptive hand speed, with the proper pedigree to boot in that. And I think he was presented with a moment that allowed him to shine and put it together. When you're in there with a guy who just doesn't, especially in the heavyweight division, who doesn't keep his hands up, And I think what we're seeing is Eddie Hearn had to eat more garbage than Anthony Joshua did, because I was reading a article on ESPN where Hearn was talking about in terms of a bigger name in British boxing, you're not going to see. There's not going to be another Anthony Joshua. This, that, and the third. Basically anointing him for his third heavyweight reign, and this is a guy from 96,000 people who failed to keep his hands up and got embarrassed. So it's Roy. Shout out to Roy Bennett. He made a post saying that AJ has now been reduced to gatekeeper status. I don't know. I don't know if that's the proper assessment right now. At this point, I think AJ is a person who, because of the numbers he's able to draw, the asses he's able to put in seats, he's still viable as a name. But I don't think he's far off from that label.
I mean, I definitely do see his point where he's at least fast tracking himself to being a gatekeeper. But as with you,
I mean, hey, he might be on some Jake Paul status now, because hey, look at it. Hey, the fight we were all clamoring for years in terms of Anthony Joshua and Deontay Wilder, don't be surprised if that shit happens now. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Hey, if Tyson Fury loses to Usyk in this rematch coming up, don't be surprised if we see Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury, just off the strength of it.
Do a Super 3.
Are those fights stale? Are those fights stale and past their expiration date? Absolutely. Will you tune in?
Yeah, I agree.
You absolutely will.
Can I ask a Courtney question real quick? And Tiffany, I want your take too. If I said Anthony Joshua versus Frank Sanchez or Big Baby Anderson, do you think he beats those two guys?
I mean, Andy Ruiz. Well, I don't. No. That was the other Cuban. Hey, the thing about the heavyweight match, you can insert anybody, and pretty much, it'd be a pick 'em. But I mean, those are definitely fun fights to watch. I think those are two guys who can definitely beat Anthony Joshua. I think those are two guys that Anthony Joshua can beat. I think the thing with Anthony Joshua though is I think his stock was a little inflated because of his past few fights. I mean, Otto Wallin and UFC cage fighter in Dongo, I mean, with the Dongo, he showed up and looked way better against Fury than he was supposed to.
Can we acknowledge that Fury carried him now? Can we admit that Fury carried him? Can we be frank about that?
Hey, I mean, that's not an incendiary statement, in the least. But I mean, if we look at AJ's wins over those two guys coming into this fight and how he did it, and then what people were, basically buying the stock at, I think it was obviously inflated. But I'm gonna kick it to Tiffany so she can kick her piece. I'm eager to hear what she has to say.
What's the question? Am I answering Gary's question?
Well, let's start off with your overall assessment of the fight. Go ahead, Tiffany.
Well, hello everybody. Anyways, I can't really say what I thought about the fight because I was streaming. I totally forgot the fight was happening and it was going to be at 4:00 in the freaking afternoon because they were in London. And so I streamed it from my phone. Don't tell DAZN that I was streaming it. But anyways, I was streaming it from my phone. So I couldn't actually hear, which is good. Even when I'm good, I like to wear earplugs so I can't hear the corner. And so sometimes it's good to watch a fight without the sound, right? However, I could tell just from the beginning first 30-45 seconds that it was going to be a long night for Anthony Joshua. Like he was hurt right off, like right out the gate, he was hurt, and then it just spiraled. It just spiraled down. And like to Courtney's effect, he wouldn't put his hands up. I mean, it was concerning that, you know, at that heavyweight level that you can be so careless to not keep your hands up, especially you get rocked and knocked down and things of that magnitude. And I always felt like Anthony Joshua was kind of inflated. Like the dude got power. We can't discount that. I'm not saying he's a great boxer. I like Anthony Joshua, but I always thought of him as like inflated. Like they put those special tests, put him through those special sports tests, and he was like this big ass heavyweight that was on all this specialized equipment, all the best nutrients, all the best equipment, and then like he's still getting rocked. Like it kind of reminded me like Rocky and Drago, right? Like he was the best. They gave him the best equipment, the best of everything, and then like Rocky beat him up. So it's kind of like that's how I kind of like see Anthony Joshua. As far as to Gary's point, I like Jared Anderson. Of course, he's from Ohio too. That would be a good fight, actually. I'd like to see that. And they both were coming off of losses, like getting embarrassed and knocked out like that. Even still, Anthony's was worse to me, in my opinion. What happened? But I like to see that fight, and I definitely, you know, I said I would never say this. I feel like Wilder should retire, but they probably could still make that fight happen too. Like if they really wanted to. But I really feel like Wilder is not even in his like right mind right now, and I feel like he should never get in the ring again. But people will still buy it, and Anthony Joshua is still selling out arenas. He can make money. It is very obvious that he is going to sell some tickets. So I don't think Eddie Hearn or Anthony Joshua is going to stop anytime soon. They're going to keep putting him in there until he actually becomes, like what Courtney says, I'm not saying it, gatekeeper. Or Roy Bennett said it, until he becomes the gatekeeper. That's what's happening, but I don't know. The heavyweight division is always scary to me.
Well, with the exception of Roy Bennett, the thing about British fans is they are incredibly forgiving. More so of American fans, and that's not a knock to any of our British viewers. That's actually a very admirable, I think, of the British fan base is that they're very forgiving in terms of they'll give they want to see you back. They want to see you come back. They want to see they love a redemption story. They want to see you in there. In terms of, I mean, in comparison to American fans who tend to label guys bums after they take a loss, So I think his legions are still there, and just with that added, with it comes with Anthony Joshua, that makes that makes matchups viable in and of themselves.
Facts.
I'm not really sure about this. I think I read somewhere that there's no rematch clause on the Joshua Daniel fight. Is Gary? Do you know anything about that?
I've heard that. Oh, I've heard the same thing. I heard there's no rematch clause, so there's no automatic rematch. If they negotiate one, they negotiate one, but there's no rematch clause in the contract, from what I understand.
I think Eddie Hearn has has access to enough funds to make it enticing for him, and also the fact that Dubois has already lost by knockout to the undisputed champion if Usyk wins the rematch against Fury. So there wouldn't be really too many people clamoring to see Dubois and Usyk get right back in there for undisputed. So I mean, it's one of those things where. And then Dubois could figure like, well, I've already knocked this guy out once. I can get paid a lion's share to go in there and just basically do what I've already done again.
So now let's shift our focus to the heavyweight division at large. Tiffany, let me go to you. So what matchups now would you like to see in the heavyweight division? Because we got some very good possibilities that's been swirling out on social media. I'm just gonna shout out some names. We got Bacoli, Parker. We got Zhang up in there, and also of course Daniel Dubois, who recently had that spectacular night against Anthony Joshua. So with these stars now up in the on the top of the iceberg with fair to say with Wilder, Joshua, kind of in the back view. What new matchups excites you now in the heavyweight division?
I actually don't have like a interesting matchup that I would like to see. Obviously, Tyson Fury Usyk is at the top of the list right now, just because.
Yeah.
Just
in
because,
December, I heard that they're
December. That's always. I actually like to see Jared Anderson rematch Bacoli. Like I'd like to see that and see if he can make any type of adjustments and win and come out victor on that one. And I don't know. My favorite division is much smaller than this division.
Yeah, understandably so. Gary, status of the heavyweight division. What matchups going forward in the very near future do you envision that you would like to see? Go ahead, Gary.
So honestly, like for me, I don't want to see Usyk fight again. I think Usyk should just retire. I want to put that out there. Like his legacy is complete. If he retired today, he's the greatest cruiserweight of all time, and he's the best heavyweight of his era. So the era that was Wilder, Fury, AJ, the best heavyweight of that era is Usyk. So there's nowhere for his legacy to go but down. I understand there's still money to be made, right? But he's made enough money to feed Ukraine for the next 10 years, right? Like he's made plenty of money. There's nowhere for his legacy to go. So if I had my pick, I'd tell Usyk to retire. The rest of the division, I think any combination of Bacoli, Zhang, and Dubois makes for a great fight. Like any permutation of those three. So I think there are still really good fights. If I could make a fight, I would like to see Bacoli rematch with Anderson, and I would like to see Zhang and Dubois mix it up. Those are like I think 2 50-50 fights where either guy could win. I think Zhang has now done enough to get himself a title shot with Dubois. And like Dubois throws wide shots. If Zhang could get him out, right? Like there's a possibility Zhang could catch him with something. So it's a fight that's intriguing. I would pick Dubois to win, but Zhang would certainly have a chance there.
Great stuff. Courtney, in this immediate future of the heavyweight division, what fights do you envision seeing? Do you want to see? Go ahead, Courtney.
I mean, irrespective of the rankings of where Bacoli currently is, I think he deserves to be next in line. Have we really seen him, at the upper echelons other than beating a top prospect in Anderson? No, but I think the way in which he did it, it's basically insert him and insert any name with him, and it's an intriguing matchup. So I would definitely like to see Bacoli get that title shot against Dubois. Zhang, that's another one who just because he's so heavy-handed, Big Bang, getting him insert anybody in there with him. It's a good matchup at heavyweight. So as far as any immediate challengers for Dubois' IBF title, I would say those are my top two. Like I said earlier on the broadcast, in terms of Deontay Wilder against AJ or Fury against AJ, those are fights I think would be fun to watch. I mean, as far as Usyk, anybody against Usyk, I'm pretty much in agreement with Gary on that. Though I wouldn't mind seeing Usyk become a long reigning champion, like the Klitschko's. I think he'd be more of an exciting long reigning champion than either of the Klitschko's were, just because the Klitschko's were were naturally big, super heavyweights that this division has now become. As far as where Usyk is a little more of a classic heavyweight, more along the lines of like an Evander Holyfield. So I mean, it's anybody against him in terms of taking all comers. But the thing about that too is, I mean, if he beats Fury again, it's pretty much we've already seen him beat everybody who's pretty much viable. But I mean, Bukoli against Usyk would be fun to watch. Usyk against Jang, that would be fun to watch as well.
Rod Brown, he brought up in the comments Jared and Ajagba. What y'all think about F.A. Ajagba?
That's a notch below.
Yeah. For me, F.A. Ajagba, he's kind of like a Bukole. A step down from Bukole is that if his name gets inserted, it's him skipping way ahead of the line because he hasn't really beaten anybody to deserve a place in line.
Great stuff. I want to take it back a little bit. I want to talk a little bit more about Usyk. So, Gary, you said that he shouldn't prolong his stay at the heavyweight division. I get that point, especially when, especially with Usyk's rematch against Anthony Joshua, where Usyk, even though he won that fight, he was tested to the limit in that rematch. I mean, Anthony Joshua, even though he lost, I remember he was way better compared to their first outing. And also with Tyson Fury, he maxed out. He made Usyk to the fight to his limit at that time in the heavyweight division. So I see that point, but you don't think he should basically you don't see any more room for him to be fully groomed at heavyweight, or you think you still believe that he should just get out of there and just call and possibly retire?
I think before he answers that, I'm gonna jump in with a real quick assertion in that.
Go ahead.
I do not think we should label the Usyk and Fury rematch as a foregone conclusion. I think that's a very winnable fight for Fury. None of us should be surprised if Fury won that rematch.
Well, it was a split decision to begin with, right? So
yeah, I didn't see it that. Did y'all see it that close though? Like, I really didn't. Like, I was surprised on the scorecards in that fight. They were as close as they were. I can't see any way that Fury won, which one of the judges had. I didn't think the fight, it was good and it was competitive. Fury had moments, but with the knockdown, I just didn't see the fight that close on the scorecards.
If I can remember, I'd say the first 60% of that fight, I saw Fury winning.
Okay.
But from the last 40%, that's when, obviously Usyk, he had to ramp it up, and he took over. That's how I saw it. But yeah. But
okay.
Go ahead, Gary. Did you want to?
Yeah. Look, what is Usyk? He's 39 years old now, right? He's at that age now. Like, he's at that tipping point. Like, if he hangs, he's not a guy that can go in there and get quick knockouts in the heavyweight division, right? If he hangs around and keeps going 12 and try to UD 12, UD 12, UD 12, eventually what happens? You get knocked out because those boys can hit, and you're not going 12 with everyone. Before that happens, go out like Andre Ward. Just go out like Ward got his best win over Kovalev and left. I understand it was a rematch, right? So if he really wants to fight Fury again and he beats Fury again, be done with it. There's nothing left for you to accomplish. You've made so much money. Like I said, the greatest cruiserweight of all time, the best heavyweight of his era. But you can't put a price tag on that, right? And I'm not telling anyone to turn down money, especially when we talk about $50 million plus a fight, $100 million, whatever they would pay him over there. I'm not telling anyone not to do that. I'm just saying, your legacy is forever. You can't do anything but tarnish it at this point. And if you hang around long enough, you'll get knocked out by someone. Walk away now with your legacy in place. That's really what I would tell Usyk. If he wants to fight Fury one more time, all right. But win, lose, or draw, that's it.
The thing about I don't disagree with that. But at the same time, is if we're beckoning Usyk into retirement because we don't want to see a legacy diminished, that's kind of going against the natural order of boxing. In that's the natural order of things. Floyd Mayweather, it came along and disrupted that. Andre Ward, that was a disruption in that. Rocky Marciano, that was a disruption in that. But typically, what the story is, the natural evolution of boxing is a guy is a promising prospect. They turn into a killer contender. They fight to the upper echelons and become champ. They reign as champ. Then they become a long reigning champ, and then we see the inevitable decline. And then some guys we see stick around too long and they become washed up or has-beens. And it's always eventually so long champ, you know, and that's the quote Larry Merchant. And you know, and what he saw as the analogy to what happened to HBO. But I mean, that was, to me, that was a very profound acknowledgement of what happens in boxing and what the story is. And we've, you know, and we've seen a number of guys have diminished legacies. We've seen a number of guys stick around longer than they should have, or take L's that they should have taken. And in that moment, we say, you know, we shake our heads and we're sullen and we're like, man, what a waste, or why are they still here? But then when we give it a decade or two, and we don't remember that. We remember, you know, we remember the greatness. We remember those times that we stood up on the couch and screamed at the TV for these guys. So if that happens with Usyk, that's just the natural order of things. And you know, as far as just wanting to see guys shielded from that, I mean, that's like wanting to see your favorite football team go undefeated for the next 25 years. You know, it's just, that doesn't happen. You know, everybody loses. Everybody comes short everybody comes up short sometimes at the Super Bowl, the World Series, or the NBA championships. You know, that in boxing, it's no different. But you know, Tom Brady's lost in the Super Bowl. He's still great. You know, Michael Jordan has been bounced to the playoffs. He's still great. You know, insert anybody from any other sport in, you know, and they're still great. I think Usyk, being made not made, but you know, being encouraged to retire because we don't want to see him take an L, or we don't want to see anything diminished of him. I think that just goes against the natural order of the sport.
Like I got a memory. Bernard Hopkins, I thought, was the best middleweight of like my life that I saw. Right, and he went up. He was a great light heavyweight. My last memory of him is him being flattened by Joe Smith. Like, that's my last. Pernell Whitaker, I think, is the greatest boxer I'd ever seen in my life. My last memory of him is him at 154 pounds getting beat up by Trinidad. It's like, I don't want that memory for Usyk. I don't really want that memory. I understand, and Courtney's right. Yeah, that's the natural evolution thing. They hang around for one too many. But like, let's reverse that course. Let's start a new trend. Like, let's get out. People can fight deep into their 30s now. Let's get out while we still can. You know, let's like make Andre Ward and Floyd Mayweather the new trend.
I can see
but
both.
look at the guys who do that, and look at the amount of social media ire there is. And I know these guys are doing this for reasons that are way deeper than any opinion that we come with online or on this platform or anything else. But I mean, I'm one of those people. It's like, hey, go ahead and reach the finality of your career, whatever it is, and let that be that. But I think when guys do that, the narrative becomes, you know, look at Marciano. You know, as great as he was, people are just like, well, you know, he got out before Floyd Patterson came along, or, you know, Ali came along, you know, he was due for it, you know, or, you know, well, if Andre Ward would have stuck around at 175 and fought this guy or this guy, you know, it wouldn't have gone like that for him, you know. So I mean, it's a dual-sided coin, where we do, you know, it does feel good to see these guys get out. And they retired from boxing. Boxing didn't retire for them. They've got all their faculties and their fortunes in place, and that does feel good. On the other end of that, though, is, I mean, it is kind of aggravating. It is kind of aggravating. It is kind of unsettling to see the caveats and the asterisks put up beside their names when people get into conversation.
I agree with Gary. I see what Courtney's saying, but I do agree with Gary because somebody I really respect in the sport, who's did a lot in the sport, he told me he would never let his kids box, ever. because he's seeing like what it does. But like sometimes they stay in too long, sometimes they don't. Have anybody seen Shane Mosley lately? Have you heard the way he talks?
Tragic.
And that's sad. It's tragic. So like, you know, and there's nothing you can do. Like once boxing is over, and there's no amount of money that's gonna fix that. Like, so I'm kind of on the side with Gary. Like, hey, just leave while you did everything you could that potentially that we see is great. Like, greatest cruiserweight, did some stuff in heavyweight. Just leave while you can on your own before you are retired. Somebody retires you from the sport.
Great stuff. I just want to add that I think I see both points, but I'm leaning towards I'm kind of 50% Courtney, 50% Gary. As far as Gary's point, I think Fury. I think I think Usyk has already done enough in the heavyweight division to justify him exiting out of the game, because you know he's because I would agree with Courtney more if all Usyk was known for in the heavyweight division was just fighting the high glossy names and Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury. But that's not the only names that he fought. He fought Dubois as well. So I think he got a good amount of work in the heavyweight division to justify a retirement. And he doesn't. I don't think. Although I would like to see him match up with the Zangs, with the Bacolis, with with those type of guys. I do see more of Gary's point. So yeah. So that's going to be it for episode 112 of the Standing 8 podcast, where we reviewed Daniel Dubois' spectacular 5th round knockout victory over Anthony Joshua, and also the current state of the heavyweight division. Before we exit it out, let me go to you, Tiffany. Any other last thoughts outside of the topics we discussed that you want to put in? Because I know maybe last minute thoughts on Berlanga Canelo that we spoke on the previous episode, where you guys, you and you, Courtney, Gary, weren't able to participate. But any last thoughts on that, or any other thoughts before we close it out, Tiffany? Go ahead, Tiffany.
I don't know who thought Berlanga was going to win that fight. I was not one of those people. So it wasn't shocking to me. I thought it was going to be worse for him, actually. He did better to me than Charlo did against Canelo. So I was surprised by that. But I was expecting him to get knocked out. I'm not going to hold you. But it was a good fight overall. I'm excited for, the upcoming fights we have going on. And thank you to Aaron for putting this together. Thank you to Rob for being in the comments. Gary, Courtney, everybody else, Tommy, Steven, Mike Gomes, everybody there. Camp of the Greats. My homeboy GT is out in Costa Rica. And Ohio Runs Boxing.
Yes. Great stuff, Tiffany. Gary, same with you. And before we close it out, any thoughts on any boxing topics that's prevalent in your mind that we didn't discuss here in this episode, as well as any closing thoughts, shout outs you want to give out? Go ahead, Gary.
I wanted to piggyback on what Tiff said. I gave Edgar Berlanga no shot in that fight, and he didn't disappoint me. That same day, September 14th, the Texas Longhorns beat UT San Antonio 56-7. They were more competitive in that fight. They were more competitive than Berlanga was. People were like, "Oh, Berlanga fought well." No, he didn't. Look, he tried. He did try, unlike Charlo, who was content with losing. But Berlanga was never competitive in that fight. I thought that was the easiest fight in the world to score. Canelo just dominated every round. So I was, Berlanga's stock didn't go up, in my opinion, at all after that fight, for sure. But shout out to you, Aaron, Courtney, Tiffany. Thanks for having me on. It's always an honor. It's a privilege. Guys, thank you so much for having me on.
Awesome. Same with you, Courtney. The Burt Brown Sugar. Any last minute topics, other boxing topics that we didn't discuss here, you want to chime on that's heavy on your mind, and also any closing thoughts, shout outs as well. Go ahead, Courtney.
In terms of the Berlanga and Canelo fight, I saw, I didn't catch it live because I was in Laos. So anybody who's been out there knows that Wi-Fi and cell phone reception are not that great. So I was in the, I wasn't able to catch that fight live. But just on the replay, and I saw a video clip of Carissa Shields and Shushu Carrington basically giving Berlanga his flowers for his performance against Canelo, basically for leaving the ring upright, saying that he gave a better performance against Canelo than anybody in recent memory, and he's going to be a former champ. I mean, a future champ and whatnot. Damn, hey, I'm a firm believer that people are entitled to their opinions, but some of them should just stay quiet with those opinions. But yeah, that was not it. That was hometown love. But yeah, I mean, the thing is, sometimes when you lie to people, you do more harm than good. And I think if Berlanga was watching that he should take that with a grain of salt by people who love and support him very much. But yeah, he got a lot of growing up to do and learning to do. But I mean, hey, he didn't take the L or the beating or the sustained beating that a lot of people had in the cards for him. And I think he just concluded early on that he was going to use his skills to avoid that beating rather than win the fight. And that's what it was. But I mean, hey, it's back to the lab for Berlanga, and hey, I wish him well, as I do with anybody in the sport. But definitely, as far as other boxing topics, in addition to that, definitely looking forward to Bivol and Beterbiev. And as I said previously, I've got Bivol winning that fight. And other than that, man, shout out to everybody who was rocking with us and who's been on this movement with us from day one worldwide, and all of our affiliates, all of the people who plugged in with us and collaborated with us, and have allowed our fans to become their fans and vice versa. Gary, definitely an honor to be back on with you again. Tiffany Daniels, the First Lady of Boxing, always a pleasure. And always a delight to have you as an addition to this family. Aaron, thank you for what you do on the daily, behind the scenes, and just what you've done to grow this platform, and just make it viable the way that it is. And all of our other panelists who are on regularly, who are not on with us tonight, we love you guys, and looking forward to being back on the air with you and engaging in this war of words and talking that shit. But yeah, hey, y'all have a good evening or a good morning or good day wherever you are, and God bless and all the best.
Great stuff. Everyone, you guys can hear me, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, my camera, my video signal went out, but as long as y'all can hear me, great. But yeah, this was episode 112 of the Standing 8 podcast. I want to give a shout out to you, Tiffany, Gary, Corny, being on with live on this episode, and also shout out to Stephen Ruiz, Tommy Rush Jr., Michael Gomes, and also alumni. I have a brain fart right now.
So many at this point.
Eddie Sanchez, Daniel D-Rock Pena, of course, and also the boxing movements that are on the top of my head right now. Sorry if I forget a few. Just Boxing Foundation, Supreme Boxing, the Boxing Rundown with Rokas, and the usual panelists there, Sean Fitzgerald and Anthony Saldana. Shout out to you and all the supporters, whether you're watching us or listening to us on the podcast. We appreciate you all. Again, this is from all of us to all you. Have a safe night. This is episode 112 of the Standing 8 podcast. Have a great night, everyone. Peace.
Peace.